Hello, 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 beautiful unicorns. Welcome back to Get Your Shit Together podcast with myself, Yana Kasprzak. And today you're tuning into another incredible episode of our special series, which is Your Journey of Becoming, where women talk about how they went from dreaming to doing. This is where you get to hear from real women sharing their real life stories, the messy, the magical, the middle part of becoming who they were meant to be. Because the truth is, your dream life doesn't start when everything is perfect. It starts when everything is chaotic, when everything is messy. And it starts the moment you say, I'm done playing small when you have had enough. And if you're ready to say that today, then grab your coffee, light your candle if that's your thing, and let's dive in. Because today I'm joined by Natasha Kostalas, a woman who is a personal trainer, ex-bodybuilder, competitive powerlifter, host of the Binges to Barbells podcast and author of Beyond the Barbell. You're going to absolutely love her story. And since this is Get Your Shit Together podcast, I think there's no better way of starting the stream of questions aside from having you, Natasha, talk and share about what was it like for you? And more importantly, what was that defining moment for you in your life where you finally said, enough is enough. I am going to do what it takes to get my shit together. So the rest of my life would be the life that I would be proud to live with and feel and be obsessed with that life.
It's the only thing that I thought made me happy. And as soon as I got promoted to obviously a high position, I just thought that, that will be the epitome of my success. Is like, great, I'm a boss of like 9 people. I run a department. It's all
I'm
great.
a badass
And
bitch,
then,
right?
yeah, exactly, I know. And then, oh my God, it was nothing what I expected it to be. And in fact, the complete opposite. The stress, the
Mhm.
mental health, the physical health that it took over. That job genuinely like took over my life. I was in a nutshell working like 13, 14-hour days, 7 days a week. And there was just no other way that I knew how to work. And it is that classic example of, I used to love my job in teaching, but it ruined me, like genuinely ruined me mentally and physically. Because I put it above everything else. I put it above my own health, my own mental health. And it was a case of it started off as like really bad chronic stress, which turned into then really bad emotional eating again. My binge eating disorder, which I'd had a lot of my life, had like come back again. A relationship at the time wasn't working out. It was like everything was going wrong. And I felt really trapped. And I felt that, I'd worked all these years to be where I felt I wanted to be. And it just ruined me. And I guess when you said about, what was that turning point where you're like, fuck this shit.
You're right.
Oh my God, there were so many of those moments. But I guess like the worst one was probably when throughout that entire year, so this is now like 2016, I'd already been a teacher for about 5 years at this point, and I was in this job, and I realized that I just couldn't do it anymore. And it got really bad where my health was beating me. I guess like I had to go to hospital at one point. My periods were really bad. I was getting really bad sleep paralysis that my doctor wanted to send me to a sleep specialist. I was getting panic attacks on the way to work. And when I was really, really bad, when it was really, I feel like embarrassed talking about it, but when I was really, really bad, I remember having a panic attack just parking up outside of the school. And the head teacher himself and the deputy had to get me out, and they had to take me off timetable. So I still, even in the state that I was in, I forced myself to go to work, which is crazy because I was a broken person and I was still trying to fight. I was like, I can do it. I can do it. I'm not going to let it beat me. And in the end, like they were like, you need some time off timetable. I was taking sporadic days off work. And even when I was taking sporadic days off work, I would just be in bed for like 2, 3 days at a time. I wouldn't shower. I'd stay in my pajamas. I'd barely eat. And I guess I never really understood what depression really meant until I experienced that. You know, like when people say, oh,
Oh,
oh, I
yeah.
feel so depressed. Do you know what I mean? But when you
Oh, I
don't even
do.
realize what it is.
Yeah. We have to go through it to understand what it is. It's similar
Yeah,
to like owning a house, driving a car, riding a bicycle, falling off the bicycle. You don't understand why are you crying when you fell off the bicycle? It's not that bad.
yeah,
You try and you tell me. You
yeah,
gotta experience it to understand it. And that's why those who have not been through depression cannot fully help and understand you to get through it because you gotta know what it's like.
yeah. Yeah. And you feel trapped in it as well. And that's exactly like how I felt at the time. I just felt like I was so unhappy for this was practically like a whole year of my life, this particular year that I'm talking about. It wasn't just one occasion. It was literally like this was day in, day out. This was chronic stress, chronic mental health problems, panic attacks. And even when I took myself away from the workplace, I was still experiencing it even at home. And
Yeah.
like home is meant to be like your little haven. Even then, I did not, I felt so trapped. I was like, I don't even know how to get out of this. I don't even know what it's like to be happy. I don't know what it's like to experience a day when I hadn't cried. And I'm such like, when people meet me now, they're like, oh my God, Tash, you're so like happy and bubbly. And I just think I always want to say to them, you have no idea how long it has taken for me to get to this point. So the turning point, I suppose, for me was it was just yet another occasion where I hadn't gone into work. I was in bed for like 2 or 3 days in my pajamas. I didn't even have the energy to open my front door, but my brother came around that day and he just sat at the end of my bed because I didn't even leave my bedroom. And he was like, you can't carry on like this. And it was just hearing it from someone you love and hearing it from someone like my brother he's a really good guy because he's very honest and he will say it as it is. There's no sugarcoating anything with him.
That's good.
And he
We need
basically
people like that in our life.
exactly. And because he had seen how much I'd declined in this entire year, he was like, you need to get out the house. You need to experience something that's not to do with work, that gets you out the house when you come home from work. And he basically suggested one thing. And because he's still a personal trainer to this day, he was like, you need to train with me once a week or even twice a week. It will be a hobby just to get you out the house. And the negative person I was at the time, my response was just like, weight training. How is that going to help me? How is that
No.
going to make me happy? How is that going to do anything? And
Yeah.
it's so crazy thinking about how the irony of those words, because I genuinely never would have changed my life if it wasn't for stepping foot in the gym a few months after that conversation. So because of the state I was in, I never agreed straight away. It was something that I kind of left for a few months because again, it's like I do think when someone's going through a hard time, you do have to be ready to commit to something.
Oh, yeah.
I knew I wanted to be happier, but I wasn't yet ready to be like, right, okay, yep, I'm going to start training straight away. I had to be not in a better place because I certainly wasn't in a better place, but I needed to be sure, I think. And I think that's what it was. Like it was still going round and round my head what he said. And I was thinking, should I do it? It's something I've never done before, never been to the gym, never picked up a weight in my life. And a few months later, I said to him, oh, you mentioned about me, doing something after work.
Mhm.
Can you train me? And that day completely changed my future forever. And it's just crazy thinking about how that one decision changed my whole pathway in life. And if it wasn't for that day, I wouldn't have grown to love something that I didn't know anything about, that I wasn't good at. And it's crazy what and it doesn't necessarily have to be weight training for someone or the gym, but it can be, when you feel passionate about something, it
Mhm.
changes you as a person. You're passionate about something, therefore you have a soul about you. I feel
A
like I was
purpose.
soulless. Yes,
Yes.
exactly. And I found my purpose.
Yeah.
And even though it was something that I was really shit at to begin with, I
Yeah.
thought, wow, this is good. Like, I like how it's making me feel. I liked that it gave me a little bit of happiness. It got my stress out. It was the 1 hour of my week where I wasn't thinking about work. I wasn't stressing about work. And I guess for me, the turning point was realizing that every time I went into the gym, which started off at once a week, then twice a week, then eventually 4 times a week over a long period of time,
Yeah.
I realized that, oh my God, it's making me happy outside of the gym. So I'm happy in the gym, but now I'm actually starting to feel these feelings again. And you know, when feelings are so alien to you, when you haven't been happy for a long time, you almost feel like, do I deserve it? And I did
Right?
think like that for a long time. I was like, do I deserve to feel like this? Like, is this normal? I've been so like robotic in feeling a certain way that feeling like this was really, really alien. But I loved it. And I just thought, oh my God, like this is changing how I'm thinking. This has given me confidence. And when I really realized that it wasn't just changing my body, because changing my body was like the icing on the cake for it.
Hmm.
Fundamentally, I'd be going into work with so much more strength and confidence. I would start saying no to people above me. If they were like, oh, Natasha, you need to do this, I was like, sorry, I haven't got time for that. Sorry, you're going to have to give me a longer deadline for. And it's crazy that my own mindset in being in that job completely changed.
Hmm.
And yeah, and that's kind of like how it started. And then obviously I got into bodybuilding after that years later, left that job, found another school that I liked. And yeah, I guess it's just crazy how one decision can completely change your life. It's
Yeah.
mad.
But
It
that
is mad.
is how it always happens. All it takes is one decision because decision, it's like I'm sure you have watched some like doctor surgeon kind of shows, I've heard of them. When a surgeon goes in, decision means it's a cut. You decide, right? So you decide, which means you cut away from all the other possibilities. Most of us, we think we make decisions all the time, but if you keep going back, then you haven't decided. That means that you haven't punished yourself enough. You haven't experienced enough of the suffering that comes with it.
Mm.
You needed to experience the suffering for 2 more months to digest, to process your
Yes.
brother telling you what he sees and knowing that this is what's going to help. And the reality is that exercise helps everyone. This is, I don't want to label it as cure all because it doesn't cure everything. It's
Yeah.
not a
Yeah.
cure, but it helps you to get to that place where you can cure whatever it is that you are dealing. I've heard that this is where I actually love to hear what you know about it, about when you're working out and you're contracting, like tightening and releasing your muscles, especially with weights, that what happens is that it releases happy hormones into your body
Yeah.
from
Those endorphins.
right? But you can't get
Yeah.
it any other way. You need to contract your muscles, right? You
Yeah.
need to
Yeah.
stress out your muscles. So is it true?
Yeah. And it's crazy because it's like the way, even though those sessions were painful, they were just a better type of painful than the pain that was in my head.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
I
And it
do.
was like, well, this is like, this is like temporary pain that you eventually feel better afterwards. And yeah, it was those releasing of endorphins that I was like, whoa, this is it was a weird alien feel. Like I'm still remembering what it felt like because I'd never felt it before. So it was like, yeah, the confidence that it brings, the way it changes your mindset, the way you realize about how people treat you as well. You're like, it really does make you not just strong physically, but honestly mentally, where I'm
Yeah,
like, I'm not taking
resilient,
shit from these people. I'm not taking shit from this.
right?
Like I'm not gonna like give you my blood, sweat, and tears for everything at the cost of my health. And I think
Right.
that's when I realized that, this whole time that I was living like this for this year, for that whole entire year that I described, you don't realize how you are until you come out of it. I didn't realize I was depressed till I came out of it.
Hmm.
Isn't that mad? Like you don't even realize it.
It's not.
People can tell you, but you're like, no, I'm not. Like
Yep.
it's like you're in a weird denial because you're in
You're in a
your own little
haze.
bubble in your head. Yeah.
Yeah, you're in a
It
haze,
was
you're in a
weird.
fog, and you, not just you. But we humans, when we suffer in silence, and we
Yeah,
suffer in a way of we're manipulating our way of thinking to normalize what we're going through to avoid dealing with what's actually going on
yeah.
inside of us. And when you were talking about pain, when it comes to that exercise, one thing I've learned over my lifetime, and I'm sure every single woman that's listening to this has learned as well, is
Mm,
that pain is inevitable. We're going to feel pain, right? Body, physical pain, but suffering is optional. So there's some of us that would go to the gym, feel the pain, and then that pain would cause suffering, mental suffering, right? Because the physical and the mental. While
mm,
others, they feel pain and the suffering is not there. They feel like they've conquered it. It's almost like, so I carried a badge of suffering that I can suffer and I can carry so much going through my depression. That was my badge of, so to speak,
mm.
honor that I can do it, I can survive this. Until I learned I don't want to survive. I want to fucking
Yeah,
thrive. So how do I do that? And that's the part that becomes difficult and challenging because not only are we lying to people outside of our body that everything is fine, we're good, everything is great.
yeah,
Those are the happiest, usually are not. They're hiding things
mm,
unless they worked
yeah,
on their shit, got their shit together, and now they're like really truly happy. And energy doesn't lie. That's why even though you try to lie, even though I tried to lie to people as well, they knew. Like you can
yeah.
spot a
They knew.
liar when it comes to those kind of things from afar. And you're like, bitch, please, who are you really lying to? Who's your lying benefiting? It
Yeah,
doesn't. But we choose our pain. And choosing the pain that we're familiar with is so much easier than choosing the
yeah,
pain that we're not familiar with. Even though it comes, like you said, with a cherry on top, because now it's like, oh, look in the mirror. So I like what I see there, right? But in the mind, it's still the old version of yourself that you see. And it takes
yeah,
a minute to catch up to the reality. And because I wrote down a couple of notes, because initially you were talking about like expectations and reality
yeah,
and
yeah.
how it's like you had this job, you had expectation, and then there's the
Mm,
reality. So what I like to label the word expectation is replace it with fantasy because we fantasize, call it dreaming, call it visualization, whatever we want to label it. We have
mm,
like a whole orchestra, we have a whole movie happening in our mind of what we believe this job is going to be like, or what we believe this kind of a lifestyle or this life would be like, or we'll be like living in this house and we fantasize about it and we'll look and we love it and become obsessed. And then reality fucking
yeah,
shits all over us. And we're like, what the hell? What happened? Where,
yeah,
like, where's this miscommunication? And it's part of it is our detachment from reality. And the other part of it is that we don't really, we're also becomes really quite disconnected from our natural ability to create the reality that we fantasize about, right? Many will refer to it as
yeah,
manifestation. So we've lost that ability over many generations, but we've always had it and we still have it and we still use it. And then you were talking about your job and how you were feeling. And I really just could not get past the two words of toxic relationship is not much different than the one that you had with your job. Because that is what a
yeah,
toxic relationship is, where little by
yeah,
little it's chipping away at you and it's taking a little bit of piece from you today, a little piece tomorrow, and you lose so many different parts and pieces of yourself that now
yeah,
you don't even know who you are. And all of a
yeah. I
sudden,
didn't. Yeah,
right, you wake up and you're like, what the hell happened? I was fine. Then I woke up and the alien invasion, did they come and take like a bunch of parts of me and then left me with just leftovers? You figure this out on your own. Like what happened, right? So,
that's it.
um, my question is, after having said that, is Even though you were in a state where you were in panic attacks and anxiety, why did you keep going back to that job?
I guess because I didn't want to look like a failure. I think that's
Mm.
what it was. I think it's because I worked up so many years to be in that position. And it was kind of like, well, if I back down now, then it might mean that, that I failed. And do you know what I mean? And I
Yep.
didn't want to prove a failure to myself, but to other people as well,
Yeah,
you
you don't
know?
want to disappoint.
Yeah, exactly.
And
I
if you
didn't want, and I
disappointed,
guess, yeah. So I think it was a pride thing as well, because
it
it was like,
is.
I'm not a failure. I'm not going to show anyone, like everyone in the department that I run, that I'm a failure.
Mhm.
And I was someone that I just thought, if I give it up, which I did eventually at the end of the year, it literally lasted a year. I guess it's because as well that I eventually found out that my predecessor, who had the job before me, she lasted like 6 months. The one before that, 2 months. Prior to that,
Oh,
the
wow.
department didn't have a head of English for like 2 years. So I ended up finding out all these things, and I was just like, oh,
Oh, that makes sense.
okay. It's not just so later on, obviously, when I developed the confidence to start saying no, I realized that it wasn't me, it was them. But I think at first I thought it was me. Oh, I can't handle it. And like when the goalposts keep moving, they pile on more stress, couldn't
Yep.
handle it. They pile on more this, more that. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
yeah, it was like that. It was crazy time.
No, I can honestly, all we can do, the rest of us that are outside of your body, all we can do is we can just imagine and we
Yeah,
can relate. That's all we can do. We can relate and understand what you were going through because in one way or another, we have gone through that. My
yeah,
last job, I worked at a bank for 11 and a half years,
yeah,
and this is where I learned. I mean, it took me years to finally learn and understand that everything and how I was and how I've always put myself, even I wouldn't say in harm's way, but always there
yeah,
trying to help everyone in my life, is that it came from the programming that I received being a good girl. So having worked at the bank for 11 and a half years and helping out a coworker who was dealing with anxiety, was dealing with panic attacks, and I've never witnessed it. I've never been exposed to anything like that. So in that moment, I would say I felt almost like Buddha did, where it's like all of a
yeah.
sudden you see things that you've never seen before, and now my fantasy bubble has like cracked open, right? Or exploded. Now here's the reality of what's also possible. I didn't even know what that was. And little by little, I'll start to understand what it was. And of course, when you start to understand things more, they appear within you and you're able to experience those things. So, um, it doesn't become easy. It becomes hard temporarily. But if we keep sticking with that hard becomes easy temporarily, but in the long run becomes hard. So my last day of work after that job, this was 2 weeks before we actually got a mortgage on our house that we were just about to move
Oh
in.
my
We didn't even
God,
have a
no
mortgage in
way.
place,
Oh my God.
right? With two kids, moving into a new house, no mortgage in place, and
Oh my
luckily
word.
everything worked out. And I was happy. Like I knew in a sense that everything was gonna work out, but I wouldn't have left that job if that didn't happen. Because
Yeah.
I was let go, I was fired because Yana, you should have known better. And I helped out a coworker, and the reason why I got in trouble is because another coworker hated that one, and she tried to get her fired, and in the end, I was the one that got fired.
Oh
And
my
she liked
God.
me. So in the end, she's the one that felt horrible, and she in the end ended up getting fired a few months later as well.
Oh my
So I
word.
believe in karma. I
Yeah.
don't do harm. I don't think negative like that. I know she wasn't doing it to hurt me or even to hurt her. In the end, all people that do those things, they hurt themselves.
Yeah.
Even though they don't
100%.
understand it, they're hurting themselves so they can stay there. So I worked at Canada Post for 6 months, and my last day, I was literally my hands were like this, and I couldn't even like little like a T-Rex, right? I couldn't even hold envelopes. I was stuck in a panic attack from morning until that day. at the end of the day, even in the morning, I was talking to my husband. He's like, Yana, just quit, just leave. I'm like, no, I
Yeah,
can't.
just
I need to finish the day
yeah,
because I don't want to be seen like a failure. I didn't want to leave
yeah,
my
exactly.
workload onto someone else. Meanwhile, I probably shouldn't have been driving, right?
Yeah,
When I can't even like hold the wheel like this, but there was a lot of things that contributed to it, right? Um,
yeah.
I was only a month in when we lost the dog. He had a heart attack on my 30th birthday, and the dog we got for me when we lost the twin girls. So it was like a lot of different things connected to it,
Yeah,
right? And then my mom's voice in my head, people that love us, they tell us things to keep us safe, protect, especially parents. And she felt bad thinking that she was the reason why, but this is our ego that comes
yeah,
up and says, I'm the reason why you quit and lost a job and you're going through this. No, it's not all about you. There's so many other things that are connected to it. It's never just one thing.
yeah,
And that's why like your response was also, it's not just one thing. There's many things that lead up to it. And now all of a sudden, here we are dealing with all these things that we weren't even aware were happening in the background behind closed doors of our life
yeah,
because we're so busy working or dealing or surviving and that we're not really finding ways to thrive. And in this process, there's many versions of us that have to die in order for this new version to be born and reborn. So I love asking this question of all the women that come on to my podcast. I'm getting it together of what was that version of you that had to die in order for this version of you, the woman that you are now, could finally live.
I would definitely have to say it was the negative but unconfident side of me.
Mhm.
So, my brother would always tell me all the time, "You're such a negative person." And at the time, again, I didn't believe it,
Right?
but it was true. Like when I came away from it, like now when I reflect on it, I was like, I really was. I only ever complained about my job. I only ever complained about the bad things. I never saw the positive in anything. And I guess that was the version of me that needed to die. The gym made me a more positive, confident person. And I didn't realize that I was a negative person. I didn't
Mhm.
realize how low my self esteem was as well before I went into the gym. I never realized that I just didn't feel, I couldn't even take compliments, Yana. Like, genuinely, like, I remember being in the gym when I was still quite a beginner, and people would be like, wow, you're lifting really heavy. And I'm like, oh, am I? Like, I would always, I couldn't even take a compliment.
Yeah,
If
that's
anyone said
normal.
anything nice to me, yeah, I could just, now I'm like, oh, thanks, because I know and believe it's true, you know?
Yes. See,
And I
that's the
think for a
difference.
long time, like you said about identity before,
Mhm.
it's like that was my identity. I was a negative, very low self-esteem, very like not a very confident person at all. And then it was only over that period of time where I became more confident, more positive, that I learned to let that old Tash die,
Mm.
because it helped me deal with life better. I managed to survive the later part of that year better because of the fact that I was going to the gym. I could tolerate and have that strength to, like, with all the stresses of work. I was finding that I was able to deal with it in a much better way, I suppose. Yeah, I'm very glad that Tash has died. I
Right?
never want to see her again.
Right? Just leave her there. We'll look at the pictures. I'm sure you look at the pictures and you can remember what
Oh God.
that
Yeah.
version of you was. And when you were
Yeah.
talking about not being able to take a compliment, this is like, I shit you not, this is a normal thing of good girls. It's very normal because good girls, what they will do is I'll call it deflecting, where they'll deflect and
Yeah.
be like, I can't take the compliment because I don't believe it for whatever reason. And then they'll try to give the compliment back,
Yes. Oh
right?
my God.
So it's
I
like,
used to do that
it's
so much.
not me, it's you.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden you're like, oh, nice. And my kids as
Yeah.
well. I learned in my like mid 30s, and I'm in my late 30s now, turning 40 this year in May. So
Oh,
so is my husband. We're just
amazing.
11 days apart. And I finally learned how to take a compliment. And the first time I did that, it felt so freaking uncomfortable because
Yeah.
it most people don't know how to do it, and they don't even know how to react to when you actually like take a compliment. And it's a simple thank you with the hand to your
Yes.
heart, where you bring that compliment right in. Give it right here. Put the compliment right here. Thank you. And my kids also, I'll give them a compliment and they'll deflect. I'm like, no, 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 we are not doing that. Learn to say thank you. My son, he's good now, but my daughter, because she's a few years older, and the earlier you get them, the more likely they'll have it. But I didn't get her that early to start teaching her these things. But it doesn't mean that she's not going to learn. She's learning, right? Just say thank you. Maybe not putting the hand on the heart yet, but thank you. Or just say thanks and take it in without trying
Yeah.
to give a compliment back.
Yeah.
That's where like you're like tit for tat. No, just take it and that's it. You don't have to, it's not an exchange of gifts. It's not Christmas,
Yeah.
right? Um, so as you were talking about that version of you that had to die, I also know and understand that anxiety is unhealed grief, which means that it's important to heal that grief. Having not healed my grief for 15 years after losing twins, I think I understand just a little bit, right? Uh, so the grief that we all go through when we lose a loved one, that version of you, even though you don't want her back, you loved her. So
Mm.
how did you grieve that loss of her?
Do you know what? I've never had that question before, and I'm actually genuinely trying to think of how I can answer that, because I don't even think I knew that I was grieving for her during that time. It's
Mhm.
only now, because so many years have passed, where I always reflect on my past, always. I
Mhm.
always think about that time, because it meant it, even though that time was a really horrible time, it was a golden time,
Yeah.
because it's where everything changed for me. So I mean, even now, I would say that, I mean, I genuinely don't know how to answer that, Yana. But I just think when I think about her, my old self,
Yeah.
I kind of I kind of remind myself that although I've let go of her, and that is like it is that mourning period, I suppose, where you're slowly, slowly, slowly letting go. I think I just embraced the new me so much that at the time, I wanted to forget about her.
Mhm.
Whereas it's only now, years and years later, I always remind myself of her. I post old videos of myself on Instagram. I always post my first progress pictures from that. I always now post a lot of my old self now, but back then I wanted to just ditch her. It was almost like I was repressing the grief of her. I'll be honest and probably say that I was repressing the grief of her, that I just wanted her to go. So every time I was becoming more confident, more happy, I was like, yep, she doesn't exist. She doesn't exist. And I forgot about her for a long time, up until recent years, I'd say. And it's only really mainly now, when I look back on my Instagram as well, that I reminisce even more so now, that time period. And I love to share it with people now. And I think it's primarily because I'm in a place in my life where I can talk openly about her, my previous self. There was a long time where I didn't. And it's only really been in recent years where I've been on podcasts and my book coming out that I've been able to do that. And I would honestly say that writing my book, Beyond the Barbell, was the best way that I grieved for her, because it took me four years and 4 months to write it, from like beginning to publication. I might as well
Yeah.
show everyone a little copy now. This is the
And
book.
tell us when it's coming out as
Um,
well.
Yes, it's already out. It's on Amazon. I'll make sure that Yana has the link to it. It's on Amazon and able to be purchased there. But writing that was, I would say, my recovery, and like almost like my therapy
Yeah.
in letting her go. Like there were certain chapters that I didn't actually want to write, but I knew that it was important for the story, like
Mm.
really talking about how I felt at that time in a lot of detail. But that's what I would say, that at the time I wanted to be rid of her. And then I was only really able to grieve her and remember her, like through the book, through remembering where, because I think it's so important as well for people that even if you want to just say goodbye to your old self, it's important to always remember that person, because you wouldn't be the person now if it wasn't for that old person that went through all that shit. You
Yeah.
know?
She's the one that brought you here, right?
Mm,
Without her, you wouldn't be here, right? And
it's
nobody
true.
else could have
Yeah,
you here because if a different version of you wouldn't have brought you here, a different version of you would have brought you somewhere else. And we wouldn't
yeah,
even know where that is,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Um, we all live in a bunch of little like white lies that we tell ourselves just so we
Mm,
can normalize certain things or not see the reality that we are living in at the moment. Hence why we don't see why we're depressed while we're going through it, or at least initially we see it when we're ready, like when we're too far gone. That's when we start
yeah,
seeing it. We don't see that we ourselves are negative until somebody else points it out to us. And then, of course, what do? We prove them right away by saying, no, I'm not negative.
yeah,
Right? You don't know
yeah,
anything. How positive of a response is that? Right? So, and I love seeing these things because I've been there and I've done that myself. I was also told for you, it was your brother. For me, it was my husband
yeah,
who told me, and my husband is the same as your brother, where no BS, no fluff.
yeah,
This is
yeah,
what it is, and that's it. And it's like, listen, if you were a surgeon, you probably would lose your job watching some surgeon show, watching a good doctor right now. Um, so you got to be able to deliver these news in a nicer, more gentler way. It's all a process. So he's learned how to deliver these news to me since then, but I needed those like reality checks where here I am living in my fantasy bubble, thinking that I am the best and most positive person in the whole wide world. And the reality goes right in my face, says, you're so negative. And then all of a sudden, I realized I was. And I was just even having that
mm,
conversation. We were having conversations like reminiscing from our past. Because initially, the way that my husband used to be is like, we don't bring up the past, we don't talk about the past. I'm like, no, that's what makes us us. So, and I help him to understand that I don't look at the past of who he was, who I was
yeah,
in a negative way. I see it as, oh, look where we are now. If we didn't go through
yeah,
those things, like I come from a place of gratitude, like, dude, you have the balls to say to your wife, you're negative. Like, get your shit together. And it took me some time to see it. And the way that I started
yeah,
seeing it is I was doing this little exercise because I was working at the bank at that time. All I did was took a little pen that I always had with me because the bank needed a pen. And every time I would catch myself thinking or talking or being negative in any way, I would just write a line and another line and another.
yeah.
And then before I knew it, I had so many lines with like the four lines with the one across. I'm like,
Wow.
fuck, you're right. And of course, we all love to hear that we're
Yeah,
right, right? So, and after all these years, like I had the opportunity to thank him for being so blunt and telling me it like it is because if he delivered the news fluffy to me, I would have just eaten
yeah,
it and be okay with it,
yes, exactly,
right? But when it's like right
exactly.
there in your face and it hurts and it stings, but I know it's coming from a place of love, even though you're still an asshole, but I know you love, right? Parents do that all the time. I know I do that with my kids, but it takes time to digest that information to understand.
Mm,
And And I want, and this is something that I want everybody to understand as well. Just because, let's say somebody came to you, Natasha, and told you you're negative, does not mean we gotta understand it right away because the person that came to us and told us that they've been watching and observing and paying attention and
mm,
normalizing it for a long time. So now they're okay with it and they understand it. It's not new news to them. This is old news. Now they're telling you, and to you, it's new news. So
yeah,
it might have taken them 3 months to get to this point to tell you, to tell me. So it's only normal for me to take a day, 2, or months to get to a point or a place where I understand that as well. Because I gotta now watch and observe and pay attention to me. And prove to myself that I am negative. And understanding how I was negative, now I can understand how I could be positive if I so choose to, because negativity is not a bad thing,
Mm,
right? Otherwise, the positive would not exist without the negative.
yeah,
You gotta have
agreed.
them both. Even when it comes to I'll use the word hate because it's really like a strong word. And I've heard people use the word hate many times, and even my daughter as well. I was having a conversation with her, quite a few conversations I had with my kids recently. And it's like every week there's always some kind of conversation that are like on a very deep level that I know not every 16-year-old would understand, but at least the information is in the computer and she'll understand it when the time comes. And then I shared that information with a few other people. But it's when you hate someone, like, oh, I hate that girl in school. In order for hate to exist, love has to exist at the same time, which means for everything that you hate
Yeah,
about that person or that action or behavior, there's something about it that you love. And you have a choice to focus on what you hate, that will grow, or focus on what you love, and that will grow. And even in that particular thing that you hate that the person does, when you start to understand what is it about it that you actually love, that you already have within you, that's why you're able to recognize and notice those things, because otherwise you would not.
yeah, definitely.
So, um, for you, what was the lie that you were living with that you didn't realize was a lie until everything fell apart?
I think I think it was in terms of like the confidence that I thought I had in my job at the time. I think I went into that job initially like, yeah, I'm amazing. I can do everything.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say I was arrogant because I've never been an arrogant person, but I knew I was good at my job. And I think the lie that I told myself was that I can do anything now that I've got to this high position and I have all this responsibility, like I can take on anything. And I think that was definitely the lie that I told myself for a long time
Mm,
because I and I think that's why I did not know how to process that when I was going through that worst time
yeah.
because everything I thought about myself was a lie. And it was a really weird thing to actually process because I've spent years of my life trying to get to where I wanted to be. They always ask you, I'll never forget 5 years before I got that particular job, the first interview that I ever had in my teaching career, this guy said to me in an interview, like, oh, so where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I was like, oh, I want to be a head of English. I ended up doing it in 4 years, not five. And that was the other thing, that I had so much ambition in me, but there was this side of me that thought I can do anything. I'm
Yeah.
going to be the best. I'm going to be able to change everything. And then it was realizing that sometimes like all these other factors, like you said before, about things in the background, when you put all of these things into place, the job, the stress, my mental health, my physical health, the relationship at the time that didn't work out, like all of these factors made me be a failure, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was very hard to overcome the fact that I wasn't the great person in this job that I thought I was. And
Mm,
yeah, that was a tough pill to swallow, I think.
yeah.
Very, very tough.
Well, I know you use the word arrogance, but it's not necessarily arrogance. It's confidence, it's
Yeah,
the
in the job.
belief,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
and then we all get humbled.
yeah. And it humbled me. The one thing that I was most confident about, because the thing is, I never had I had low self-esteem in terms of my body and myself. Well, when it came to my job at the time, I was like, yeah, I can do this. I'm amazing. All of this. I was so young as well to get in that position. Like, there's not many 20. I think I was still 25 when I got the job. And
Mhm.
like, there's not many people that have such a big position like that as a head of English in a secondary school in UK, like at that young age. Like, bearing in mind that I'd only qualified when I was like 21. I just turned 21. So it's
Mm,
crazy that the one thing that I was so confident about just completely broke me.
yeah.
Yeah, broke me.
It's a massive reality shift. That's what humbling is, because we're living in one
Mm,
reality and now all of a sudden we're shifted to this new reality that we didn't even think was possible. And this is where what I refer to as a spiritual awakening begins, when the spirit and the soul wakes up, and now we go through depression. I used to actually be on medications for antidepressants. Um, f- After my son was born, this is where, I was led into, this is where my sister came and she pretty much rescued me. She sent me a message, a text message. I was just home with my son for maybe 2 weeks after he was born. She sent me a message, and the way that I responded, she knew. She works with mommies and babies aftercare at a hospital. So
oh
she could tell the
wow.
signs of depression and the way that I responded. She called me right away, and I broke down crying. Like, just broken. And I was always a tough bitch, like wouldn't take shit, right?
Yeah.
I would give shit, but I wouldn't take it. And here I am, the opposite. I used to be, in some ways, a bully to my sister, right? And this is where my reality shifts, the spiritual waking, all of that stuff, I refer to a Pandora's box with all the stuff that we suppress and we hide, and we're like, not today, I don't want to deal with it, put it away, deal with it, never. And it just eventually it comes out. We can only pack so much inside ourselves, not
Yeah.
dealing with it and not grieving those losses. And we all grieve in a different way. And that's why I wanted to also hear from you. Like, how did you grieve that loss? And this journal that you spent 4 years putting together, that you call
Yeah.
your book, from
Yeah.
Barbell, right? And that is so healing.
Mm,
And that's why I call it a journal, because you've journaling, you're putting things down, but in a way that is not just personal to you. And that's the hardest part to do. You put it out there for everybody else.
yeah. That
And
was hard.
right. And I know when it
I
comes
still
to,
get comments when people have read it. Like one woman in the gym literally yesterday was like, Tash, I'm halfway through your book. She goes, we need to meet for a coffee. I was like, oh, God.
yep,
She's like, I need to. And I'm like, it's a very vulnerable thing to do, I think,
it
to put
is.
everything that I put in there. There's a lot in there. When people read it, there are a lot of sides to me in there. And yeah, it's hard. But then I thought, it's so important to tell the truth, like that's my version of the truth, that's my version of exactly what I went through, how I felt at the time. But I do try and tell people as well, like, I'm not, like, there are a lot of things in there like that we've not spoken about, but when I was really really bad, like, I'm sure I'll mention it now, but like, even like considering like suicide and stuff, like, that's, even though at the time it was nothing that I acted upon, those thoughts were in my head a lot, like a lot.
Yeah.
And it's mad because it's like I try and explain to people that I'm not that person I was 10 years ago, but it's so important for me to share with people exactly who I was, because I know that there's probably loads of people, that women that are going through loads of stuff right now. They feel trapped, they feel imprisoned in their life, they feel like they don't know what it's like to be happy. And that's why, like, I wrote the book, because I was like, I'm as vulnerable as it is, it's horrible, like, sharing like the worst, because I'm sharing the worst sides of me, that things in there that I've never told anyone, things in there that my mum never knew. So when my mum read a very early first draft of the book, she was like devastated, because she was like, I spoke to you every day on the phone, and like, I didn't even know you were like going through that, because it's something that, like, and maybe this is where the pride thing comes in, and like,
Yeah.
we spoke about ego earlier. It's
Yep.
like I couldn't show the world how bad I really was. Like, towards the end I did, like when my brother had to like let himself in my house and sit at the end of my bed and tell me who I was. But for a long time, it's like I was just trying to not show anyone exactly how, like, who I was. And
Yeah.
yeah, and for a long time I was ashamed of that person, I think. So I think that's where,
Makes
like,
sense.
when you speak about that grief, me letting go of that previous self was because of the gym. I feel like that new version of me was able to come out because of what the gym made me feel. And then I could slowly like let go of her, but
Yeah,
obviously keep her in a memory as well, like with
of course.
everything that I've mentioned in the book. It's, yeah, but it's hard. You do feel shame as well. Like I do feel like even when that woman said to me about, oh, we must go for a coffee, like there were things in there that I didn't know about you. And I'm like, oh, there was a part of me that my old self came out. And I was like, oh, I just don't even want to remember that. Like I'm cringing so much. I'm like, I don't want to even remember that time sometimes, but you have to remember every part of the journey, I
Yeah.
think. I think that's important.
Yeah. Otherwise, we're right back where we started, living in denial, pretending everything is good and great, and
Yeah.
putting on a really great show for everybody. And that's why it's also amazing to have people in our life that can see right through us. And you can be in your
Mm,
denial bubble, but in the end, it took your brother sitting at the end of your bed telling you the truth and the reality that he was watching, his truth and his reality that he was seeing you through, to then for you to hear it, and now all of a sudden you can't unhear it, you can't unsee it, you can't undo it, and you got to
mm.
move forward. So I did ask you what was the lie you had to let go of, but what about the truth? What was the hardest truth you ever had to admit to yourself on your journey?
I think it was realizing that in some ways that job beat me. And that's when I left.
Mhm.
I decided I didn't even have a job to go to, Yana. And people were like, you've handed in your note. I had
I
teachers
did
on
the
the
same
day
thing.
coming up to me. They were like,
High
they were
five to
like,
the
you
crazies, right? As many would say, you're crazy. How can you leave when you have no job? You can't because you choose
literally,
yourself.
yeah. Yes, I'm not joking. I had rent to pay for. I wasn't in a relationship at the time. I had no one to like support me financially. I had my car to pay for, everything else that as an adult that you do. And I remember so many teachers in that place were like, I've heard you've handed in your notice. Oh, what school are you going to? I was like, I haven't got a job. They're like, oh. And they would always say the same thing. I think I must have heard the words, you're brave, like 10 times on that day. And it's because I was like, I'm not doing this shit anymore. Like, I'm choosing myself, exactly what you just said.
Yeah.
The truth was that job, although initially thinking it's beaten me and I'm a failure, actually, I was like, I'm not allowing, I think towards the end of that year, it was the realization that I'm not allowing that job and this way of life to control me, to control my
Mhm.
emotions and make me suffer. I'm like, I'm not doing it anymore. And it is like, it's that process of elimination. It's that process of eliminating the job that like has ruined your life, or the relationship that was toxic at the time. Like all of those things were happening at once during that time. And it was that truth that I'm choosing me. I'm not choosing this shit.
Mhm.
So I'm
Yeah.
not, even if it means I'm brave, because fuck knows how I'm going to pay for my rent next month. Like, eventually, obviously, I got a job, and I was just like, well, thank God I got a job. But like, I eventually got a job, but it was at very last minute as well. But it was that case of, I choose me. And
Yeah.
even now, I choose me. If there's something in my life that makes me unhappy, that causes me chronic stress, no, I'm
It's
done
not
with
worth
that.
it.
I'm not
Yeah.
doing it. I'm done. And everyone has stresses in their life. Like, I still have stress in my life. Obviously,
Of
I'm an
course.
adult. We're adults, but that I'm talking about that kind of stress that causes that depression, that not being able to get out of bed, not being able to shower sort of stress. I'm not allowing anything to control me in that way ever again. Like that's been the biggest lesson, definitely the life lesson.
Yeah. I love that. And I know so many, you can clearly tell that I can relate. I'm like, oh my God, so many different
Um,
things that you shared. I'm like, that was me. That was me. I've also
yeah,
contemplated ending my life. And there's
yeah,
been a few times, I wouldn't say I was close, but it was literally, it was just turning the wheel. But then
yeah,
and I haven't watched too many of these kind of like doctor shows, but part of me knew that that wasn't going to end my life. It's just going to cost
yeah,
more with older
yeah,
car repairs and everything, right? Um, and yeah, so been there, contemplated, thought of different ways, but at the end, there's always something that keeps us
Yeah.
here. And realizing that, no, we all have choices, we all have decisions that we can make. And as I was going through this dark time, there was something that brought me and put me in front of, I call them healers, people that are on social media and they're helping by sharing their journeys, their stories.
Mm.
And of course, Tony Robbins is one of them for everyone, right? Like, let's be
Yeah.
honest, everybody knows who Tony
Yeah.
Robbins is.
Yeah.
And there was something he said about depression that got me to see things in a different way. There was a couple of different things. Number one, that if it fills more than two of our basic needs, and we have six of them, we become addicted to it. And depression fills usually two, three, or sometimes even all of those needs, where
Mm.
people are doing things for you, they're helping you, right? And so understanding that, I saw my depression for kind of like for what it was in a different way, because that became a new normal way of living. And it's not that I was depressed as a teenager or as a kid, but part of me tried to find all the different ways of how I was. And of course, if you look for it,
Mm.
you'll find. And so understanding that, and then the other part he was talking about is when he was giving a lecture at a university. And people are in universities, they're going through a lot, they're stressed. And he was asking, like, when you're going through something really, really like the most challenging thing in your whole entire life, write a list of the things that you would do to get yourself out of that place. And I can't exactly remember the number, but I know the number was like in the higher percentages, that he was shocked at how many people responded as the first choice was to end their life. And his response was, what's
Um,
the point of the rest of the things on your list if this is your first choice?
yeah.
You can't try
Yeah.
any of those. And that reality check right there, again, blunt, right there in your face, tells you like it is. If that's your first choice, you can't do anything else after that. So
Mm.
why not try all of these first? And when all fails, then obviously none of
Then.
these, something is gonna
Yeah.
work,
Yeah.
right? If you
Yeah.
actually really
Yeah. Yeah.
try.
Yeah.
So, this whole concept of if we can go back, what we would change, I personally know I wouldn't change anything, but it's also good to kind of fantasize about the things that we could change or add to the change. So because by talking about these things, it can potentially add an actionable step for another woman who's going through a hard time to move the irreversible choice to the bottom of her list and give her another what if, let's try this, right? So if you could go back to the woman that you used to be,
Mm.
what would you tell her that she would not be ready to hear?
I would have said, instead of staying a year at that job, after the first month, when I had a gut feeling, oh, this doesn't feel like the job that I signed, I'd have said, quit now. But
Mhm.
my old self would not
You'll
would
be
not
like,
have.
no.
No, I'd be like, no, I have to prove to everyone that I that I'm not a failure. But honestly, I would have, if I could go back. Like yourself, Yana, I probably wouldn't change anything because I feel like these things all had to happen in this exact time scale, and I'm a very much
Yeah,
believer in that.
me too.
But I think if I could go back and like change one aspect, I'd probably say just quit this job now. It's not worth it.
Mhm.
You're gonna regret like not quitting. And do you know, I'm so glad that I didn't stay on any longer than I did, longer than a year. Year is still a long time though,
It
in a
is.
job that has nearly basically ruined your life.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
And I love the honesty that you probably wouldn't have listened, but you know what?
No.
The seed would have been planted, and you would have been like, who does this bitch think she is telling me what to do? I'm gonna prove her wrong. And imagine if
Still
you
would have been the
did,
same outcome.
right? Imagine if you actually went on that path to prove that wrong and continued going and
Yeah,
still be
yeah.
at that job. Can you imagine still being at that job?
Oh my God, no. Do you know what? The person that I am now wouldn't survive in that place. It,
Mm,
like, genuinely. And what's crazy is when I left that job and I worked at another two schools. So in total, I'd been a teacher for 10 years by the time I left.
mhm,
I actually think on reflection, I should have left after 5 years, because the next two schools that I ended up staying at, before I left, I went to one and then another. I realized that the people I was surrounded by were the old versions of me. So obviously, but by the time that I eventually finished my teaching career, I was just about to compete in bodybuilding. So I was like an intermediate, different mindset, different person,
mhm.
strong, confident person. I would, have run-ins with people at work because I was like, no, I'm not tolerating your bullshit. Goodbye. Like, no, because I was so strong-minded. And I thought, and every time I was sitting in that office around other teachers, I would just listen. I would never, I actually was very weird. Like, before I left teaching, I realized that they weren't my people anymore. I know
Mhm.
that sounds a weird thing to say. And what I mean by that is I was surrounded by negative people.
Yeah,
All they ever complained about was the kids or the politics or the deputy head or
yeah,
the head teacher stuff. And I just remember and this was in like the few months leading up to me leaving teaching. I was thinking, oh my God, the realization hit me one day in the office. I was like, I used to be these people. And then I realized that do you know what it was? This wasn't my identity anymore. And I think that's what eventually led me to have the balls to eventually like leave a 10-year career behind me, because I was like, this is not me anymore. This is not my identity anymore. And I actually felt that every day that I was teaching the kids that I was living a lie, because I
mhm,
didn't believe in what I was teaching.
yeah.
Not just in terms of the curriculum, but I just remember thinking, this is not me anymore. Like, I felt like trapped
Imposter.
again. Yeah. And then after that, that's why I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna do it. And then I just had that confidence, had the balls to just be like, right, this is it.
Yeah.
Despite what other people thought, my mum initially was like, oh, it's very risky, you're gonna be self-employed. And I was like, yeah, I don't care. Whatever happens, happens. Like, and if I hadn't have done that, I would not have done anything that I'm doing now.
Yeah.
I can only just thank my gut for being like, the realization was, this is not me anymore. I think too many people every day are living the person that they know is not their true self. And
Mhm.
I think issues really arise when you realize that you don't know who you are. And I feel like it was only until I realized who I was and who I am and the person I'm becoming, because self-development is like ongoing. I never ever like view myself as a finished product by any means, but I feel like I'm comfortable with who I am, and I know who I
Yeah.
am. If someone said, "Who are you?" I could literally tell them I know exactly who I am. And I feel that I am grateful for the person that I am. But I think, yeah, there was a lot of, I was like, this is not, and it was, even those slight gut feelings was enough. So I didn't
Mhm.
have to undergo any more like really, really bad suffering like I did for me to give something up. It
Mhm.
was even just having those gut feelings. I was like, right, that I'm listening to my gut. That's enough for me to make another decision. And then I said goodbye to a 10-year teaching career to now do what I love doing every day, which never feels like work, by the way. Never feels like work.
And that's the beauty of all of our journeys that we can
Mm,
each experience in order for us to really truly finally get to live the life that we fantasized about. We must let go of what's not serving us and really just pause and pay attention to our surroundings. And funny enough, I can also relate to leaving my last job because I paid
yeah,
into the surroundings of the people and realized how negative every person was. And that is what really was contributing to my anxiety and panic attacks because they were literally trying to pump me full of fear, but they're trying to prepare me because
yeah,
two little kids, I was picking them up after my work, or even sometimes while I was still working, and my packages I had to deliver, because being a new person, you're learning, you're getting paid less for each route than, right, doing it longer. And Christmas was coming, and they were chuckling and laughing, saying, "Oh, you think this is busy? Just wait until Christmas comes. You're going to be here on the weekends as well." And all of a sudden I saw my future. And
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh, fuck
Nah.
this shit. I chose me," walked into the office, through my panic attack and feeling bad and for them and guilty for them, but still choosing me. Told them I'm leaving, I'm not coming back, I'm sorry. And they were shocked, surprised, because I was always a hard worker. I always went above and beyond. All the customers that have met me loved me. I, I don't know what I gotta do, but I literally even said I had to choose me, and I had nowhere to go, right? Nowhere that I even wanted to go. And this is where, after a little while, I discovered the internet, even though it was already around.
Eh?
I didn't even know it existed, because I was living in a different world. And
Yeah.
in these journeys, we do lose quite a few different things. And also, when you were talking about how the people you were working with were the old version of you, this is the people that are going
Yeah.
to be reading your book, by the way, and continue to read your book. They're all going to be the old version of you, because
Yeah.
um,
Yes,
that's what we
definitely.
do attract, because they're following a journey and a path that might be similar to yours and will lead them to their own, but we all have to follow some kind of a path until we are strong enough to pave our own path, whatever it might be. But we lose a lot of things on that journey. And I'd love to hear from you. What did you lose on your journey that you actually did not expect to grieve?
Wow. I guess I would say it was probably, although I was happy to give up teaching, I was I was grieving the old person that went into teaching. Do you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I had this, like when you said before about reality versus expectation, expectation versus reality rather. It was kind of like that when I eventually left my teaching career, although I was happy to do what I was doing, I think there are still times that I still grieve that way of life. Or but again, it was a fantasy, it wasn't real. I just thought of all like these movies where like these teachers go in and they change these kids' lives, which I did for some, I'm sure. But it was that, you know it's such a shame that I had to go through all of that to give up something that I once loved, I suppose,
Yeah.
because it was never about the kids. I always loved the kids. Teaching the kids was always the best part. It was all the other shit around it, the politics, the changing the grade boundaries and the expectations, and oh, you're not working hard enough, you need to come in and work on Saturdays. And it was all of these things that it's quite sad, really, that I had to go through something like that for me to realize that that job is not worth my health. And it is sad that at once I thought I was only ever born to teach. Now it's sad because I've let go of that person who I thought was only ever born to do that.
Mhm.
And now I'm obviously born to do something else to help other women like myself, everyone listening on here, that you can change your life. Even if you're going through something really, really bad, nothing lasts forever. And I think that's the one thing that I've realized as well in life is, even this job's not going to last forever. What I'm saying is, I think it's understanding that life is so precious. Living right now is so precious. And because nothing is infinite,
Yeah.
we're all going to die one day. We don't know when that is. But it's knowing that life is too short not to do what you want now. And
Yeah.
I think it's just so important that if I want to do something now, I'm like, right, I want to do it now. I don't want to wait. And that doesn't mean to say that I'm an impulsive person, because I always make very good decisions. I always think about things before I make a decision. I never do things on like a whim. It's kind of like, if it's something I really like, when I knew I wanted to write the book, although it took me a long time to write the book, I was like, I'm going to write this book. I'm going to do this. Like, I was like, it will be done. And it's just knowing that you need to always do things that you want to do, because life is too short to be unhappy,
Yeah. I love that, and very beautifully said that life is too short to be unhappy. So if we're not happy and if we're not having fun living, then we're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
And often
Yeah.
that's the part that we don't want to admit to ourselves. And of course, if we don't want to admit that to ourselves, how can we admit it to somebody else? Because
Mm,
it starts inside. We have to first admit it to ourselves. It's not much different than a drug addict or any kind of addict. Being addicted to our negative feelings and emotions that we're not even aware are negative, it's
mm,
still addiction. When we're addicted
yeah.
to staying the same and not changing, like change is one thing that is constant. It's going to happen whether we want it or not. It's just easier when we submit to it. When we're in the
Yeah.
flow with change, when you tap into your intuition, that's what you're talking about. Your gut feeling, that's your intuition. Feel it in the gut, but it's not necessarily always in the gut is what we feel our intuition.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when we follow our intuition, we're never wrong.
Mm,
But when you follow your ego, intuition and ego can be confused.
yeah.
And it's okay to also confuse them too, so you can understand the difference between the two. That is where we can fail. But failure itself only exists if you give up and quit. Otherwise, if you keep going, you're not going to fail. You're going to succeed. So that is my understanding of failure, that all of us, every single human being is scared of failure. And at the same time, we're scared of success because when we succeed, eventually everything ends. And then we might feel like a
Yeah.
failure, right? So you succeeded at your incredible job and career that you had. And in the end, you felt like a failure. But then in the end, you feel like a success. And then you'll feel like a failure. And then you'll feel like success. And this is the roller coaster that we're all on, no matter what career path we choose for ourselves, whether we're working for ourselves or for somebody else, we're going to experience failure.
Mm,
Nothing is permanent, everything is temporary. And success and failure are no different to this
yeah.
permanence or
Yeah.
impermanence, right? Just like the sun and the moon, they're also temporary. We like to think that they're going to be around forever, but how do we know that the sun and the moon are going to
Yeah.
be around forever? Maybe the earth will float away a little bit further, right? If we're just a tiny bit away from the sun or from the moon, life wouldn't exist on this planet. So just a whole different direction of thinking of permanence and impermanence. But as I enjoy conversations with you, as you can tell, right?
I
We're like a little
know.
bit
I've
past
got to
the
go and
time.
feed the dog in a few minutes, though. I've got a very naughty, angry dog downstairs. I'm gonna have to go
Ooh,
in a second.
okay. Well, which is
Need
perfect
to
because
feed her.
now I would love to wrap it up, and I like to wrap it up with a nice, pretty bow where I would love for you to share with our audience of those of you ladies who are listening and you're going through challenging time in your life. And understanding that we all finally change or allow change when we've suffered enough, when we've had enough. That's when we take action. Where I would love for you, Natasha, to share with everyone, what would you say to them, those ladies who are the old version of you, that they're going through something that feels impossible to get through, that maybe they're not even seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, or maybe they're not even seeing the tunnel at all? What would you say to them that they are not ready to hear, that can help them to be pushed to that side to make a decision that will help them to better their life, and in bettering their life, they will better life around them as well for people in their life?
Yeah, I would say to those people, to those women, whoever you are, who you think you are now, And these feelings that you feel are not going to last forever.
Yeah.
And change is possible. Change really is possible. So I would just say, yeah, I'd say that these feelings that you're feeling and this person that you are now is not who you are forever. And change is definitely possible. And trust me, if I can do it and Yana can do it, I'm telling you now,
Right?
you can do it. And
Yeah.
it will be a rocky road, but you'll do it.
Yeah.
It
I
will
love that.
happen.
Yeah. And it will be a rocky road and it will be a bumpy road, but it's so worth it. I feel like the two of us here are a perfect example of what's possible, as both of us have talked about having gone through almost making a decision or a choice, or even just thinking about something that could not be reversed. And yet
Mm,
here we are on the other side. And then we'll continue to get on the other side because you were talking about personal development earlier. And that's the journey. Once you start personal development, you can't stop it, you can't end it. And really, personal development is just a fancy word to self-mastery. And all of us are here trying to master ourselves. And the way that we do it is we're getting our shit together in one area of our life at a time. We cannot do everything at once. It becomes way too much. It becomes almost unbearable sometimes. That's what I think you were also talking about, Natasha, where like you had so many different things that you were responsible for, so many things you had to do, and it leads to a dark place when we're pretending to be a superhero and carrying the whole
yeah,
wide world on our shoulders. And I've watched enough superhero movies or shows or whatever to know that none of them are doing it alone.
no,
None of them. And they have someone, at least one person, who tells it like it is, who is blunt, maybe not in a nice, gentle way, but still loves you enough to give you that information because they know, don't shoot the messenger, right? But they know that you need that information. So thank you so much
thank
uh,
you,
for
Yana. Thank
being
you
on
to everyone
here.
listening and tuning in today. Thank you so much. I'm going to go and feed the dog now. She's hungry.
Perfect. Thank
Yeah,
you
thank you
again,
so much for having me.
and we'll see
Bye
you
bye.
next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.